My mom raised me to believe and to know that I'm just as smart and just as important, just as capable as anybody else. And she was teaching me this at an age where it was so important for me to understand. I'm soaking up all the information around me. I don't care where it's coming from. So about second or third grade, I started to see differences. Black kids were treated a certain way, white kids were treated a certain way. You know, our teachers would respond to white kids differently than they would respond to white kids. I peeped. And that's why I think educators play such a huge role in how a child feels, how a child thinks. So you're in a classroom with this adult for hours. And they can make you feel equal. They can make you feel empowered. Or the opposite. My grandmother used to say, learning starts at home. And I 100% agree now that I'm this age and I'm looking back on things. I think it's so important that we speak life into our children and we tell them the truth about themselves, because you don't know what the world is going to tell them. I couldn't imagine living in a house where I'm taught that I'm better, that I can't talk to a black person, I can't associate with them, I can't date them. I mean, I can't imagine being in a house like that and then carrying that out into society, because these kids that are taught that way at home grow up to be educators, leaders, CEOs, franchise owners, daycare teachers, everything. So these kids that are raised that way grow up and they go out into the world and display that same behavior. And then they teach their kids that way. So I don't know if people are wondering where this starts, but a lot of it and a lot of their thinking starts right in their homes. Have I ever toned down my blackness? Toned it all the way down. Have I ever checked to see if black people typically go to a place I'm interested in going? Have I ever been afraid to stop for gas in a place with one stoplight? See, I'm from Louisiana, and we have a lot of little places with one stoplight, okay? That's a part of my black experience in America. Yeah, I do want to check and see if it's safe for me to go someplace, or if there are going to be people there like me. So if anything happens to me, will they tell my story? Will they help me? No, I couldn't always be myself in classrooms in college. No, I couldn't always be myself at jobs that I've had. Jobs that I have now. I cannot fully be myself. And trying to explain my black experience to a white person that doesn't experience it, sometimes they're so baffled by the things that I say, by the things that I tell them that are happening in the black community. But why don't they know these things? I don't know. Maybe because they don't watch the news. Maybe because they fail to research. I don't know. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know. It doesn't involve them. It doesn't affect them. Honestly. Black people are known for minding our own business. If it doesn't affect us, I mean, all across the board, if it doesn't affect us, we probably don't care about it. And I can see some people living in their communities, doing their thing, going to work, raising their kids, and not caring about the black experience in America. I can totally see that. I can see why they don't understand why I fear for my life in some areas. It's not their life. They don't have to go through that.
In the spring of 1921, a small town in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known today as Black Wall Street, was completely destroyed. No one knows the true origins of this catastrophic event, but it's been told that it all started from a white girl accusing a black boy of sexually assaulting her. While we don't know how factual that allegation is, we do know that a mob of angry white men ran through this neighborhood and burned down and bombed over 1,000 homes and businesses, resulting in the murder and destruction of Black bodies, families, businesses, and the like. That town was never recovered. How it makes me feel in regards to today's happenings and killings of Black bodies, both men and women, it makes me feel angry. It makes me feel like the work that our ancestors and our elders and our peers today can't stop. We have to continue. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "A riot is the voice of the unheard," and we're still unheard. We're still seeking justice. You know, it just sucks that it's taken us 450 years to say Black lives matter. Our bodies matter. They always will. We've contributed so much to this country from a cultural and economic standpoint. Yet when we are thriving, they seek to destroy us. Well, I say to that, people, keep fighting, keep rioting, keep allowing your voice to be heard, because we will not let up until justice is not only served, but policies change. Justice needs to be engraved in the fabric of the United States of America, and for that to go across all people, not just white people, but all people, including Black people, especially Black people, the ones who have built this country. We were brought over for the economics of America. We have contributed greatly to this culture and the economy of America. And the fact that we still continue to scream Black Lives Matter in 2020 means that we have more work to do 450 years later.
Black people in 1920, 1921, I can't imagine how hard it was, knowing that it's still hard for Americans today, Black Americans today. It's still extremely hard. And they decided that we're going to have our own schools, grocery stores, all kinds of businesses, hotels, barbershops, everything that you can think imaginable that we would need in our own community. They did that. And within the blink of an eye, it was destroyed based on an allegation. Now, we all have a choice. I can't control how you react to something or how you handle a situation, but I can control how I react and how I handle the situation. Yes? So, these white men that caught wind of the situation decided that they were going to go in guns blazing. They're going to kill every Black person they see. They're going to burn everything down. This was their mentality. We are going to burn it all down. Kill them. That's white history. That's white mentality. And that was their mentality for centuries. You do something wrong, you're killed. You do something wrong, you're lynched. That is white history. These people wouldn't even allow the firemen to extinguish the fires. They let it burn. Based on an allegation that whole community was destroyed. What if she was lying? We'll never know. The point is, we're talking about racism and discrimination and how we don't get justice. Nobody was ever tried or arrested for the crimes in Black Wall Street. That was murder of so many hard-working, I just want to live Black people. That was murder. And no one answered for that.
Why do certain white people feel as though they're superior? Well, if you could get away with subjugating a whole race of people and bending them to your will successfully, making them feel as though they're inferior, making everybody else feel like they're inferior or lesser individuals, right? Wouldn't you feel superior, especially if you can get away with that shit? I know I would. If I could walk into a bank and successfully subjugate every bank teller to give me the money no matter what bank I walk into, after a while, I'm going to start to feel like, bank tellers ain't shit. I can have my way with any bank teller anywhere because I successfully have been able to do that with somebody else. So superiority kind of comes from a place of winning, maybe?
How it feels to know that black lives in this country hasn't been valued since the slave trade is honestly disappointing, aggravating, frustrating, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally exhausting. We have plenty of black inventors that have things that we still use today. Refrigerated trucks, a traffic light, the ironing board, to name a few. And to now know that since we're not of value in working to build up the economy, build up this nation any more than what it already is frustrating. It seems like now the only value we serve this country for or in is for sports or entertainment. And even in those realms, we don't have our full respect. We have an individual in Michael Vick, who I'm not defending, but paid his debt to society, have righted his wrongs, has apologized 100 times on end, and is now an advocate for animal rights. But there was a petition to keep him out of the Hall of Fame for that one mistake. But we have other individuals who've done far worse, of different races, who've gotten a slap on the wrist. It's just truly frustrating to know that our lives aren't valued as they should be, and that every time we look to empower each other, it seems as though it's a competition. We're not in competition with anyone. We just want to show that our lives are valuable and should be valued by everyone and not just by us. That one wrong mistake shouldn't penalize us for the rest of our life, or more importantly, cost us our life. We can't continue to say that we're the home of the free, land of the brave, and all these great monikers and titles when we're not living up to it. We only want to be respected, loved, and valued just as if we were your children. How would you feel if you were in my shoes?
Well, you stop at red lights, so you definitely see color. There's nothing wrong with seeing that I'm black. There's nothing wrong with me being black. There's nothing wrong with you saying that I'm black. The issue comes in when you treat me differently or have preconceived notions about me because I'm black.
Why do police always pull their gun on black people? And that kind of goes into the first question that I answered, right? If you can successfully get away with something over and over and over and over again, right? Wouldn't you keep doing that? If I could pull my gun on you and shoot you and get away with it, and then pull my gun on the next person and shoot them and get away with it, and if I can see other people that look like me pulling their gun on people that look not like me and getting away with it, I'd keep doing it too, because it's easy to get away with the shit.
Based on what I know about cops in America, I don't really feel differently regarding my safety as a black man. We kind of, this is triggering. Where I come from, we've kind of always had protocols in place to make the officer feel as least threatened as possible, so that we can survive. Place your hands on the steering wheel, don't move. Don't make any sudden movements that might alarm the police. Overstate when the officer gives you a command. And then after overstating, ask for permission to move forward with whatever action or command that he's giving. I don't really feel different. And I don't necessarily know if I feel like anything will change.
I believe white people ignore police brutality because it's in their nature. I mean, just look at it. Modern day American policing originated from slave patrol. Now back then, do you think white people are worried about slave patrol or the police? No, they wasn't, because they were never there to police them in the first place. And then you fast forward to 2020, in America, where racist laws like slavery or never abolished or changed. It's just dressed up to fit the current times. I mean, look at the 13th Amendment. It say it right there. The abolishment of slavery with the exception of incarceration. Now look at the incarceration numbers in America. Despite being a minority in this country, black people are the heavy majority that are being locked up, and a lot of them are wrongfully locked up. So that's just the system we live in, and not to mention the countless murders we've seen at the hands of the police that are not justified, but they still don't get justice. So why do white people ignore police brutality? Because American history has awarded them that luxury. Simple.
Do I feel like racism is learned behavior? Hell yes. No one comes into this world just hating anyone else. Even for me being a black woman, you know, in certain ways, I remember growing up and I would hear other family members say things, you know, about certain things about Mexicans or certain things about Asians, you know, that was prejudice and stereotypical. And so I never picked up on those, you know, ideas or anything like that, but it made me look like, oh my God, is this something that's true? It made me question, you know, people in different races. So I definitely could see how with white people, how they could just sit their kids down and teach them white supremacy and tell them that, you know, black people are, you know, they're violent and they're aggressive and you should be afraid of them if you see a black person walk down the street and on the other side of the sidewalk. So yeah, I think racism is definitely taught. And people who teach their kids racism, I think it's a special place in hell for you, because you're ruining an innocent child, basically. You're turning a kid who is naturally loving, who's naturally fair, who doesn't necessarily see color. They see color, but they don't associate it with something negative, right? So you're taking that innocence away and teaching them to be hateful and causing all this destruction in society. I think it's just evil. So I definitely feel like racism is taught.
Vice President Alexander H. Stephens of the Confederacy said in his 1861 Cornerstone speech, "Our new government is founded upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery subordination is his natural and normal condition." That first part, the Negro is not equal to the white man. That's what the government is founded upon. In 1861, the government was founded on that truth, because that was true. The Negro was not equal to the white man. That leads me to systemic racism. See, this stuff starts from way up here. Way high up there. That's where it starts. And then it trickles down through everybody. And then it gets to the black people, because we are somewhere down here. We're way down here. So the government, the presidents, this is their mindsets. This is what they're telling all the white people in America and all the black people in America. A president is telling the citizens of this country that the Negro is not equal to the white man. I need y'all to think about that, and I need you to sit on that. That right there says so much about systemic racism. It starts from the top. When was America so great? Did America have potential? Maybe. Do we have potential right now? Maybe. But you can't have leaders that sit in such a high place talking to citizens of a country like that. There will never be any equality. There will never be an end to racism if that's how it starts up there. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'll never be okay with that. I'll never be okay with that.
Since Trump's election, I don't really feel like racism has increased. I feel like he's just given the cowards a platform to be more visible and more vocal. But this type of racism was being shown now in social media because we now have phones. It's always occurred. It's always been there. It's always been prevalent. We're just forcing people to pay attention to it now with the use of social media. So, no, I don't think that he's increased racism at all. He just gave him a fucking platform.
I had a phenomenal conversation a few nights ago right here in front of this mural with this 51-year-old white woman dressed to the nines, conservative. She came here and had some drinks with her husband, and we were out here talking for like almost half an hour. And she started off the conversation telling me that she felt bad because up until a few weeks ago, she truly believed that Colin Kaepernick was protesting the flags and troops. And did I raise my eyebrows and give her a piece of my mind? No, I listened to her. And then I spoke my piece gently, with love. And we went back and forth, and by the end of the conversation, she was smiling. And I asked her, how do you feel? She's like, I feel good. And I'm like, can you imagine if just a fraction of the people in the world had conversations like this on a regular basis? That's the medicine. We give each other the medicine every day, but we gotta talk. And we gotta be patient and understand, and we gotta see ourselves in one another. It's like, if you can give me 1,000 acres. Give me 1,000 acres and a herd of mule, and it's not going to cure my heart. I'm traumatized. Everybody's traumatized.
If I were to be on the receiving end of police brutality, I would want for my community and the people, honestly, all over the world to rally for justice for me. I would happily become a hashtag if it meant that we were going to get meaningful and effective change in the way that the police police the community that they swore to protect and serve.
It really hurts my feelings to think about the Jim Crow laws, because Black people had to follow all these rules and regulations. We had to make sure that we demonstrated that we were inferior to white people. We had to make sure we said the right words. We had to make sure we removed our hats. We stayed out of their areas. And it's crazy because when these laws got weak or the practices slowed down for some reason, white people resorted to violence. And they justified it by saying that we broke the rules. Fast forward to 2020. You don't even have to break a rule to get murdered. You don't even have to break a rule to get lynched. In some kind of way, somebody's gonna justify your life being taken unjustly.
Telling black people to forget about or get over slavery because it happened so long ago is like telling a Jewish person, man, stop talking about Hitler, bro. The Holocaust happened so long ago. Get over it. Most of the systemic oppression that black people face in America is deeply rooted in racism and almost always directs right back to slavery. So it's kind of hard to get over something that we're still dealing with. So when people suggest that black people forget their history because it happened so long ago and doesn't matter anymore, pay close attention to those people because they are indeed part of the problem.
How do you feel when people say get over racism or get over slavery? And my response to that is quite simple. You can't. It's bullshit. It's actually gaslighting and highly manipulative because there's no way we can get over slavery and there's no way we can get over racism when both of those things are still in effect today. I know we're not technically enslaved anymore, but when you look at the police system and our incarceration system, that is still slavery, putting black people in prison and making them work, via free labor or being paid pennies for, like prison labor. So therefore, slavery is still going on. And also, we as Black people are still being heavily affected by slavery. Slavery is still going on around the world, not even just in the U.S. So you can't really get over something when you're still in the thick of it. And when it comes to getting over racism, like I said, once again, that's something that we can't get over because racism is very violent and our people are being murdered and discriminated against. So, like I said, the answer to that question is extremely simple. It's bullshit. It's gaslighting. We can't get over something that we're still currently going through. And fuck anyone who tells you to get over racism or get over slavery. They can kiss my ass. I'm just being honest.
Do I feel my black skin triggers a threat? Or do I feel the police are so afraid of? Yes, I do think my black skin and our black skin triggers a threat. I love hoodies. Many times I have to wear suits, blazers, button-ups. Not a threat then. It's only when I'm casual or comfortable is when the police or anyone else sees me as a threat. What are they so afraid of? Because when I'm in a shirt and tie, minimal encounters, minimal reactions. When I'm like this, when I'm comfortable, sweats, hoodie, just being casual and warm, there's a stereotype that we have inherited for no apparent reason. Many individuals wear hoodies of different races, but for some odd reason, when we wear it, we're a threat. Trayvon Martin can speak on that. I'm not sure why we're seen as the worst, but I think I have an idea. What do you always hear about and see in the media? Chicago, black on black crime, but you never hear white on white crime, brown on brown crime. It's a phrase coined by the media and society to continue to tear us down. And now when you have that instance in your mind and that thought process, your subconscious always tailors to it, no matter the situation or the individual. And now we've empowered stereotypes. But can we get to the root of Chicago's quote-unquote crime? Yes, it's there. It's not rocket science. We all know that. But how did it get there? These inner cities, these rural communities with little to no resources, funding. How did high-powered rifles and guns of all sorts make it there when they don't have the transportation or the finance and money to purchase it or get it there? How? I'm a gun owner. It took me a lot to get mine with background checks. And if all these individuals are already criminals, how are these high-powered rifles and weapons making it there? The drugs making it to that community. They don't have passports. Can't go get cocaine from Colombia, out of the country. So how is it getting there? So before we bring up Chicago and all these other areas, let's get to the root of it and research the war on drugs and other factors that have caused this. And now we fast forward to today. Those same individuals that you look at in that light, I'm looked at in that same light. So now my black skin becomes a threat to not only you, to the same individuals who swore to protect us. And I want to be very clear, not every cop is like that. I have friends, my father was a cop. And this is not a means to down, degrade, or devalue them, but to bring to light that a lot of them do feel this way, and they see us as threats. Sheriffs and other commanders caught on tape and documented putting fake guns on us, that if they're black, to shoot to kill first. They've been different experiments showing that if a white gentleman walks down the street with a gun, he's approached calmly, "Hey sir, what's going on?" But with us walking down the street with a gun, guns are drawn on us, get on the ground, screaming and shouting. I'm not sure why my skin is a threat. I'm not sure why it may cost me my life. I love it. I love everyone around us. We just only hope that they will love us the same and help us fix this world together.
As an educator, I probably have seen our children being villainized more than I would like to admit. It seems as if our babies go from cute little chubby cheeked toddlers to public enemy number one instantaneously, especially our little black boys. Our little black boys have been labeled as problematic since the term black was created. Maybe Emmett Till rings a bell. A little 14-year-old who was brutally murdered from a falsified claim that he whistled at a white woman. Fast forward several decades later, and our children are still being labeled as nuisances and problematic, and not just in the public, but in places that they should be considering their safe havens. These places are called schools. According to the National Center of Education Statistics, our babies only make up about 15% of the entire public school setting population. But according to that same entity, our babies lead in everything negative. Our babies have the most failures. Our babies have the most out-of-school suspensions. And our babies tie with the Native Americans with the most expulsions. And while we're on the topic of statistics, from the same organization, the National Center of Education Statistics, it had me questioning whether or not we are truly integrated. How can we be truly integrated whenever 58% of our black babies go to schools that are made of 75% or more minorities? And only 4% of our babies go to schools that have majority white students, being 75% or more. So are we truly integrated, or are we still as segregated as we were in the 1960s? And how can we assure, if we don't have truly integrated schools, how can we assure that our kids are being treated equally, especially whenever 81% of the teachers do not look like our children? So if the majority of the teachers don't look like you, and you are being told that you are bad and being put on suspension at higher rates and being expelled at higher rates and being failed at higher rates for 13 years of your life, you start to believe it. You start to believe it to the point where you can't function once you get out of high school. Just think about the mental and emotional turmoil that our children go through, especially our baby boys, the ones who get suspended the most, the ones who get expelled the most, the ones who get failed the most. But my question is, when are we going to change it?
I can't really think of one time in particular that I was discriminated against simply because I am black, I'm a woman, and I also grew up poor. So I was discriminated against racially, then there's sexism, and then there's classism. And so discrimination kind of at that point becomes a part of your story and a part of your life, and you're always having to overcome all these obstacles that come into your way. One thing that does make me think of though is I believe I really was discriminated against heavily with education. Because of the neighborhood that I came from, I'm from the hood, grew up poor, grew up around a lot of violence, and they would always change the school districts to try to make us go to certain schools to try to keep us away from the schools that had more white kids. So I ended up having to go to schools that had, a lack of teachers, a lack of books, a lack of resources, a lack of sports programs. And I would always have to do certain type of transfers and things like that to get out of those schools to go to schools that had more opportunity and had better teachers, better classes and things like that. Well, I would be able to excel. So yes, I think that's actually one of the biggest ways I think that I was discriminated against my entire life, because that was something I always had to fight for, to be able to go to better performing schools.
A lot of people tell us we need to just work hard. We need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and that's how we're going to be treated equal in America. Whose logic is that? Because the same people that are telling us things like that and also telling us we have a choice aren't realizing that their ancestors did not want to work hard, and we didn't get a choice on whether or not we wanted to come to America. I mean, were we promised something? Money, housing. What were we promised that would make us volunteer to come do the things that we had to do, to be treated the way that we had to be treated, to be beaten? I wouldn't have chose that. Somebody thought it would be okay to sign off on ships coming directly from Africa to America. The white people that governed the slave trade, that had slaves brought in, that bought slaves, did not have the same logic that the white people have today. They didn't think we had a choice, but the white people today think we did. I wonder why that is. How can you simply just tell us what to do or how to feel when you haven't walked in our shoes at all?
My experience working as a black man, I always find myself going the extra mile, having to do more just to get looked in my direction. It was told to me by another black supervisor that we have to be 10 times better than everybody else around us just for them to look in our direction to move us up as a supervisor. That statement held so much weight it didn't make sense. I know a bunch of times I would stay to help over or go to this class and go to that class. I look around me, the people around me wasn't doing none of that. So we always had to go the extra mile to make ourselves look better, but still not get the same appreciation as other people around you. You know, a bunch of times that I find myself questioning, what am I doing wrong, or why am I not getting looked at, or why are we still going through the same stuff over and over? Well, it was clearly they couldn't give me a clear answer. Why do I find myself working hard and everybody else chilling? Or why do I find myself going to classes and doing all this extra paperwork and training to make myself certified, but everybody else not doing it around me, but they still getting moved up? It was a hard pill to swallow. When you finally move up, it's like they make you feel like you owe them something for moving you up when you was out there busting your tail and doing whatever you needed to do. Always keep in mind, you catch the slick comments all the time and shit. It's a hard thing to keep playing down to where you blow up and now you're the angry black man, or why you're always so upset, or why this and why that. And it's like, yeah, you've been here 3 years, I've been here going on 7 or 8, and I'm just moving up. It's not rocket science. I went to college, I'm educated, I know how to handle myself. I'm a professional, especially when it comes to work. Always have a great attitude, always punctual, always on time. But for some reason, don't get moved up at the rate other people get moved up. And the hard part about it is to go to work every day and act like it's not existing. I learned that through 10 years of being with a particular company that, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if that person wants to keep you in their fine grace, that also plays a part. But that was one of those things that I had to get through and go over, jump through hoops to get through.
I think that black people strive so hard to have things of their own because for so many years, white people didn't want us to have anything. No jobs, no homes, no businesses, no education, no schools. They didn't want us to think for ourselves. They didn't want us to have knowledge, just a basic understanding of our past. They didn't want us to have that. I mean, it was a crime to even grow your own food. Imagine being hungry and knowing you can plant something, but you can't. In the 50s, which isn't long ago, okay? In the 50s, the average annual income for a black man was $700. That's $14 a week. It's not a lot. You can go to Chick-fil-A and make that in an hour. Okay? They didn't want us to have our own names. Now, take a journey with me, because this is what I do in my mind. Put yourself in the shoes of a slave on a ship coming to America. You're cold. You're hungry. You do not know the person next to you. You both are scared. You get to America, a place that is extremely unfamiliar to you. And the atmosphere around you is chaotic. You know, it's a lot going on. And you step up on this box to be sold to, let's say, Charles Haney of Virginia. Now, you can get Charles's name, or you can get no name at all, and you can be nameless. You don't even get a name. We have a history of being in the shadows. We have a history of being controlled. We want to show everybody that's had their knees on our necks, figuratively speaking, that we are just as capable to do, to have, to develop, to start, to cultivate something much bigger than ourselves. Because I can't speak for anybody else, but I want to see better, especially for our kids, and I want them to see better. So, I don't know, some people don't want to see black businesses or people having black pride. But for so many years, we had to see whites only fountains. We had to see white entrance, colored entrance. We had to see white. No blacks, no Negroes, no dogs allowed. We were in the category with dogs. But we got to see white this, white that, white this, white that, white this, white that. White. So my grandmother had to see that. So pardon me if you have to see a black person starting their own business. If you have to see that my life matters. If you have to see that Black lives matter. I'm so sorry you have to see that. But it is what it is at this point. So when I see a black person buying a car, getting a house, getting their master's, getting their PhD, graduating from high school, starting their own business, I feel some sort of way. Because we didn't get the option to do that in the past. We didn't have that option, but now we do. Yeah, blacks didn't get a chance to do that. So we're doing it. We're doing it now. And people are just going to have to see it. Bottom line.
Black culture to me, it's hip-hop, jazz, R&B, the Harlem Renaissance, art, dance, fashion, our hair. Black culture is ubiquitous. I'm so proud to be a Black American because we have contributed so much on a global standpoint. Our shit has traveled. I'm talking about if you go to another country. I just recently went to Amsterdam and Rome, and I can see how ubiquitous Black culture really is. I'm talking about from street art, graffiti. That came from hip hop. Us telling our stories through art. It's a beautiful thing. We are everywhere. We're gonna continue to thrive. Our people are resilient. So, Black culture is me. Black culture is you. And I refuse for that to be denied. People want to separate that from American culture. It's not separated. It's ingrained. So,
there are a lot of things that I would like to tell my son about racism and discrimination, especially in today's social climate. But how many times do we have to repeat? How many generations do we have to keep going through this? The main thing that I can tell him is approach everybody with caution. Because before they see how amazing of a person you are, before they see your goals and aspirations, they see you as a black man, even as a child, which means you are a threat. I don't want to have to keep giving my son a rundown of things that he needs to look out for when he leaves the house. But yet and still, here we are. When does it end? We don't know.
The one thing I want my son to know growing up in a racist society is stay true to yourself. Never let nobody tell you you're not good enough. Never let nobody tell you you're not smart enough. Never let anybody make you feel like you're different from them. You're a human being. You understand what's going on around you. You pay attention to detail. Always work hard. Always ask questions when you're not sure. But also have a sense of pride in yourself and who you are. That's all we can do in this world today. You know, a lot of people, with kids growing up, we shelter our kids from what's going on in the world because it's a harsh reality. I try to teach my son to be himself and to always pay attention to his surroundings. For some reason, black kids don't get treated like black kids. They get treated like adults. Sometimes leaving themselves no way to explain themselves, to get questioned by cops, to live in fear. While you're living in fear, you're just a kid. You're just a kid, but they don't look at you as a kid at times. It's scary.
How do I see the world for my nieces and my nephew, and what would I like for them to experience? My father told me for a while, as I continued to grow older and I called for him to vent, to express my feelings when I encountered racism and bigotry. He expressed that he wished and prayed that this would all have gone away, that his children wouldn't have to experience the same ignorance and racism and bigotry that he had to. I want the exact same for my nieces and my nephew. Children come into this world only knowing a few things: food, sleep, and fun. That's literally it. Racism and bigotry is a learned behavior. And when put in that environment and them having to choose from a friend that they've known since kindergarten and preschool, because now their family values is don't listen to this one, you shouldn't like that one, I don't want to see you hanging with this one. You're taking away their child's innocence. You're taking away a genuine characteristic, an instinct and a sense and a reflex that they've been showered with since they've come into this world by their own family, love. I want them to experience a world that they don't have to second guess who they are. They don't have to second guess who they love. They don't have to second guess who they can be friends with. I want them to experience a world that any and everyone is going to empower them to be better, to do better, to see better, to experience and feel better, without having to choose or having to decide from their moral compass or their values of which they've learned as they were growing up. I want them to experience a world of true love and sincerity from everyone they come in contact with, from the contact of people's character, but not how they look. I just want them to experience a world of harmony and divine love that we all look for, that we all strive for, that we all yearn for. I only wish that all this would subside and be suppressed to the point to where it suffocates and we never see it again, because the world would be so much better if we uplift each other and who we are and what we are called to be, rather than tear each other down by how we look. I was born black, something I hate dealing with, and I have to understand that I would die black as well. I just don't want myself, my nieces, my nephew, my family members, and anybody else that I know and love to die because we're black. something to think about.
Dear white people, here's a comprehensive list of all the things you could do to show up and show out to help the black community. Seriously, not a list, but here's one major thing that I want to point out. It's 2020. It is no longer black people's job. It should have never been, but it's no longer our job to educate any other race of people on why we deserve to be treated as humans and not shot down in the street. What I want y'all to do is sit down and listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen. This is not a time for you to talk over your black friends or your black colleagues. Listen to what our problems are. Take that, and you need to go spread the word to the people of your likeness. They will listen to you. They've never listened to us. Do that. Be an ally and use your mouth. Use your privilege. Use your platform. That's all we're asking for. But at this point, we'll get kind of tired of asking.
What can white people do? Number 1, listen. Just listen. They have to turn off the biased section of their brain and just listen. Next, they can acknowledge what happened, acknowledge the faults, acknowledge that you're not right about everything, acknowledge that people struggle because of the colors of their skin, acknowledge. Be open-minded, and then start using your voice. See, black people are tired of talking to each other. We already know this. White people have to start talking to each other. You need to be anti-racism, because racism is wrong across the board. White people need to be angry about racism, and then use their platform, use their voice to let their friends and their family and their cohorts and the people that work for them, the people that they work for, that they are not okay with racism. White people are so okay with letting us know everything else they aren't okay with. They aren't okay with us walking in certain areas. They aren't okay with us existing. They aren't okay with us breathing. They aren't okay with us getting jobs. They aren't okay with us purchasing homes. They are not okay with so many of the things that we do. If y'all are able to voice your opinions about those things that you're not okay with, what's stopping you from voicing your opinions against racism? It's so easy to use your voice. There's a fear I'm sensing. Maybe they don't want to lose their families. Maybe they don't want to lose their friends. But at the end of the day, your mind and your heart should know right from wrong. Because this is not a black versus white. This is a right versus wrong. This is a everybody against racism type of thing. Nobody should be okay with that. I feel like once white people start talking to each other, because a lot of these conversations white people don't want to have. And I'm so shocked, but I'm seeing so many conversations of white people volunteering and saying, hey, let's talk about it. What can I do to be better? What am I not seeing? What am I not realizing? And it's making me so happy to see that they're giving some sort of effort. But we got to keep that going, and we got to touch more and more hearts. And if you are scared and you don't know what to say you know right from wrong. Speak against what's wrong. If you see something happening, make sure you use your voice. Y'all listen to each other. Y'all don't listen to us. And let me tell you how I know you don't listen to us, because in 2020, we are still fighting for justice. Malcolm X fought for justice. Rosa Parks fought for justice. Martin fought for justice. You've so many black leaders that fought for justice years and years and years ago. And we're still fighting for justice today. So if you ask me, why am I still talking about this? Because something still needs to be heard. Somebody has got to hear what we're saying.
My concept for this mural, it started out, I've been really, how do I say this? My concept for this mural really started out with what, happened to George Floyd this past Memorial Day, and I wanted to do something much more than just do RIP with some angel wings and a halo saying I can't breathe. I felt like it was an opportunity why there are a lot of people that aren't black, brown, that are just waking up to the reality and maybe a deeper understanding of the racism that goes on to this very day. While their attention is alert and attuned to it, I wanted to say something deeper. So I wanted to use George Floyd's tragedy along with Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and Eric Garner, and Trayvon Martin, and Mike Ramos, losing track, there's that many, as a springboard to speak about deeper issues. Because if anything's gonna happen, any change is gonna happen, we need as many people from as many different backgrounds on the same page that we have a problem to begin with. And moving forward, we need each other. Because it's not gonna be just black people, it's not gonna be just brown people, it's not gonna be just white people. And yes, we need legislation, old legislation to be amended and enforced. We need new legislation to be written and enforced. But if I'm waiting on the government to pass legislation for me to treat somebody else how I want to be treated, or get to know somebody that, doesn't look like me, or most importantly, teach my children what is right and wrong, then not only am I going to be experiencing the same thing and walking in a circle, I'm going to be missing a golden opportunity to make some real change, some change that I don't think has ever really existed since mankind. And that's where everybody's getting along. Doesn't matter the class, doesn't matter the religion, doesn't matter the gender, whatever. We're human beings. And I think that's what people felt on Memorial Days. They didn't see a black man being murdered. They saw a human being being stripped of his rights and executed. And I think it was a shining example of just how valuable black lives are in America. I've seen dogs defecate with more concern on their face than that officer had on the neck of George Floyd for 9.5 minutes, almost 3 minutes after he went limp. And again, that is a result of a system that makes him feel not only entitled to do that, but another main objective, and while I'm using the chakras in the mural, is to communicate that we as human beings are away from our nature. We're out of balance. And if we were in our true nature, and if we were connected, and if we did see ourselves in one another, there's absolutely no way that one human being could do that to another human being. It's exponentially difficult for me to want to bring harm to you if I see myself in you. It just doesn't happen. So I wanted to use Colin Kaepernick. I mean, there's levels to it, but I want to use Colin Kaepernick as the focal point, and I have him looking down at the murder scene. You'll see the 4 officers. It's still not completely done yet, but you see the 4 officers, 3 of whom are on George Floyd, and right below the crust of the earth, below the murder scene, you're going to see a bunch of old Industrial Revolution gears that are kind of broken down to stand for the system that is responsible for symptoms like police brutality. And coming from, well, I'll get to that, but the next level up in yellow the yellow chakra for power and wisdom, I have that encompassing Colin Kaepernick. And just to the right of him, next to his back foot, you'll see a young man. There's a picture of a young man in his cap and gown in Minneapolis in front of a burnt out building, which I thought was really powerful. And he's also glowing yellow to signify that the knowledge and wisdom is being passed on to him, the next generation. And in the background, it's not completely done yet, but you're gonna see iconic buildings from every city in the country, also to communicate that this is it's not just nationwide, but it's a worldwide pandemic, but it's happening all over the country. And for the orange, the emotional chakra is fire, and it's pretty obvious. And for the blue, the throat chakra, freedom to express myself or express yourself, I have the people protesting, using their voices. And coming from George Floyd's third eye, at the very bottom there, I have a ray of light, purple light, going straight up to the top of the composition, where you'll see a purple heart glowing green for the heart chakra. I don't care if somebody's just sobering up to racism 5 minutes ago. Welcome.
Dear America, I understand we're angry, hurt, tired, but also passionate. Remember, our trauma comes from centuries of oppression, injustice, and inequality. Since 1619, we tried to control our destiny. So listen when we speak and say that we're not okay. Because for so long, you ignored us. We're oftentimes too forgiving and peaceful. So be mindful that your history has taught us that violence is the only solution. At this point, we can only mimic the things we learned in your history class because you feared and failed to teach us our own. Trust that we understand that there is power in the melanin that you hate so much, because not only does it consume energy, but it produces it. Please let's not forget that every leader we had, you stripped from us in their prime, simply because you feared their revolution. I bet you feel stupid now, huh? Because there are generations of magnetic, progressive thinking zealots who would rather be peaceful like Martin, but don't mind following Malcolm's by any means necessary ideas. We question everything and are unapologetically fearless. There is hope in our future because we truly believe in change, justice, equality, and freedom.